Everyone, and welcome to the Evolution of Fatherhood. My name is Shane, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Co-Parenting Guide. Co-Parenting Guide is a guide that I wrote up after my own experience. After I have a 31-year-old son tomorrow. His birthday's tomorrow, so how you going, Jake? And I've got a 28-year-old son, Cody, and I've also got a 12-year-old son turning 13 in December. His name's Alcara. So I speak from a place of experience, and I hopefully that the Co-Parenting Guide will give you some guide, or if it just helps one person, then I would have done a good deed for my fellow Evolution of Fatherhood members. So I've been asked a few times, and I've actually sent this guide to my friends that are going through separation, or they're going through challenges when they're to get a bit of perspective. And it's not necessarily when you're going through a separation either. It's more about co-parenting while you're in a relationship. How do you find your place? And I put together a few guides that helped me establish firm boundaries, to validate inside my relationship with my sons and my partners. And so I was thinking along the lines of going through the presentation, giving you the ideas of it. But what I really want is for you to, in the comments section, to give me some feedback on what you think could be added to the co-parenting guide, because I think in the part of the Mankind Project it's a collaborative. We all put our bits in there because we've all been through different experiences, and what we want as the community grows is to be a wealth of information, for all fathers, or all evolutionary fathers that want to tap into men that have either going through the same experience, have gone through the same experience, or maybe feel empowered when they're embarking on an experience. So I wrote this co-parenting guide to assist myself as a kind of the way that I heal myself when it comes to my own. I found it very therapeutic to be able to write down in my own words how I found my boundaries through the co-parenting process. So I'm part of, I think, the co-parenting part transcends the age group. So even though I have adult sons, I still feel part of the co-parenting with their mum. You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking to your children, at some point you ask them about their partner, like their your ex-partner, or your partner, what they are going through, because we're all going through the family dynamics with different lenses. Okay, so even though we're we might be around them all the time, or we could be living in separate homes, but we're seeing them every week, or we're catching up with them, when they're not living their lives. We get a different perspective. So it's good to find out from your children what is their perception, and maybe, I don't think it's a bad thing to ask about a partner. If you've been through maybe a divorce, or a settlement of some kind, and there's a bit of bad blood still, it's important that the conversation stays on the unit, not in blame of each other of the people. And that's probably one of the guides that'll come through later on, is how we speak about the other partner. That's important for you to establish the respect and the understanding from your children, because the first initial start of it is very paramount to how deep you'll go with them. And sometimes I've seen in this co-parenting guide is how we see that twist in the teen when they get to 14, and they sort of 13, 14, 15, and they sort of change their character. The co-parenting guide, if when you're talking about things through the lens of through the filter of the co-parenting guide, I find that the teens that maybe normally would have changed into a point where they became more difficult to communicate with, but if they understand where you're coming from and what your parameters are, they kind of find their own way inside that. And the more that you give them those parameters, the more confident they are that they can come and reach you. And that's the last thing. And that's the last thing you want to do, is to disconnect from them, especially if you're going on a on a journey where you're by yourself and having to reestablish your life, or you're working out a situation with your partner, and you want your kids to be to be as confident as they can be to get through the procedure. So the process. So let me start with the co-parenting guide. There's a little introduction that I talk about. With children in relationships, they never end. They just keep evolving. So one thing to know, whether you're together or whether you're not together, the evolution the evolution of your relationship keeps going. Like even though I may have been separated for 25 years from my first partner, that we have two kids, but the relationship didn't end because we've got children. It just kept evolving into different things, and that yes, we weren't like sociable, hang out, talk every day kind of people, but I know that she knows that she can just call me at any time and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, or I can call her and say, hey, the boys haven't, responded to my messages. I'm trying to get a hold of them, and she'll go and track them down and give them your dad's trying to call you. So there's that the relationship never ends. It just keeps evolving. So to keep that in mind, you'll be empowered and understand how the fundamental reasons for co-parenting important to your life, as well as your most valuable assets, your children. Right, we see that our biggest investment in our life is our kids. Right, there's parts of it, and speaking from my own personal experience, as a father, and you become isolated if you do go through the separation stage. It's very easy to isolate. It's very easy to say, well, I'm not good enough, or I've failed, and the kids are better off limiting their time with me. And it's not necessarily the case. The kids are kind of your mirror. The kids can show you, and sometimes that's difficult to take, because sometimes when they show you yourself, they actually show you the good and the bad, and the golden and the rough ones, right? The rough bits. So the dark sides, and they're all reflecting back to you at all times. So it's important that we see them as our biggest investment. Okay. The do as I do and not as I say. Sometimes when we're in an emotional state and when we're going through, challenging situations, we don't always say the things that we really mean, especially if, and I know that with dealing with partners as well, is that sometimes they just want to be heard. They don't really want to be understood. They don't really want to be helped. They just want somebody just to understand where they're at. And that is the key, it's just to see, for them actually just to be able to try and share with you is an action. So they're doing, right? They're not necessarily everything that they say, but what they're doing, their action. Would you like to meet up this week for a coffee so we can talk about our sons? Okay. Yes, let's do that. Setting some parameters and saying, what are your concerns? What can we cover when we have the meeting? And also there's a part of it that says, I've got this amount of time, I've got to travel from here to get to here. I've got this amount of time. Is that okay with you, or should we reschedule? It's like setting the meeting up for success in the beginning. It's important. Okay. So it's the actions, inside the actions of what you're doing with the meetings that make it, successful. Okay. So I know in my years as being part of many communities and growing businesses, where we had meetings and we always have an agenda. We'd always have what are the outcomes of the meetings, and we'd even take notes and listen to understand. That's the key. Listen to understand, not to react. Don't listen to react, listen to understand, and use some empathy when it comes to listening to what they're doing. And especially because that's a positive action. If your partner is reaching out to you, or you're reaching out to your partner, that's a positive action, because that's looking for resolution. Okay. So it's important that you get your agenda clear, knowing that it's not about, getting cheap shots or talking about, how whatever's happening to the children is their fault. It's just what it is. And you have to put the kids in the number one, in the number one place to get the most from your interaction, as little as it may be. Okay. Because sometimes it's very much important that you have some time away from your partner and get that real healing that goes on, by yourself, because, it takes a lot. And I know, especially for me, it took me it took everything that I had to leave my relationships, and it took me just as long to recover. I mean, I separated from my son's mum 5 years ago, and I still haven't settled down. I mean, settled down as in, like, I haven't been really actively looking for a relationship, but I'm not like in a hurry to bring in another relationship until I'm really feeling like I'm healed from the previous one, and being true about that, because it's easy to just rebound onto something, right, and just make me feel better. That's something that happens quite often. So just in saying that, that just follow the actions. Okay, so look at the actions, do as I do, not as I say. Okay, because sometimes the words are not actually the context that you want. It's the actions that are the context. If we can take our own responsibilities about parenting, the co-parenting guide will establish. So if we take our own responsibility, so you're responsible for yourself. You're not the other people in the relationship, the children and the ex-partner are not your responsibility anymore. Or if you can see it as in, their way, you can only be responsible for yourself, and you start there. Especially if there's been a breakdown and there's not a point to be made. If there's, if you're in a relationship and you've got good communication, then maybe, you talk about, what you feel your responsibilities are, and then there's a discussion around what you feel the responsibilities are. But when there's not non-communicative, it's when you become and say, you take the lead and say, this is what I'm responsible for, and it may not be too different from what you normally would be responsible for. Giving them, support, being productive, and, giving them security, finding a way to support them in ways that, and protect them, like, like listening to them and trying to show up for them whenever they need to, so they feel confidently that you're going to show up for them and still be able to go through your experience as well, because it's important that you grieve and you get through this yourself. But part of this, what I call in the co-parenting guide, is that this is your grieving. This is your healing. Okay. Well, it was for me. So that's what this is why it's so important that I think it's shared. It says the co-parenting guide will establish a framework that parents can undertake to ensure protection is both used and given. So protection is both used. We feel protected because of our boundaries. And then we are giving protection by holding those boundaries on the way out, like saying, like, I won't go over those boundaries. And I know when I'm overreacting, to remove myself, come back when I can, know that there's always an opportunity to come back and talk about things, and not make it so, make it end as, make it so, closed questioning, like, like you're telling people what to do. You don't want to be telling anyone what to do. You want to be offering, this is what's happening for me, and this is the best way I feel to be supported. And that may not be good enough. Like, it may not be right, but at least you've verbalized what you're feeling. And the more that you do that, the more clear and the more connected you'll get to your word. As part of being trusted and validated member of the family's ecosystem, it is important that you personally abide and convey by the rules of your own development and integrity. Okay, so be true to your word. Okay, so if you can say, I'm hurting, and be vulnerable to say, I'm hurting right now, that may be the best response that you can do. Not to lash out and say, this is the same thing that happened. This is why we broke up. All those questions, all those words are just and closed words, closed opinions. They're not going to stop you from. They're not going to get to you're not going to get the outcome that you require from being in those words. You want to be able to say, this is what I'm coming from. Get more in tune with yourself and say, look, I'm not really coping well this week. Maybe tomorrow might be a better day to have this meeting, right? Or to say, I'm happy to meet if it's imperative that we have this meeting. Is it possible that we can make it short, because I'm really not feeling very like I want to have a long conversation because your energy might be low. And I know how much emotionally draining it can be, because that's the other thing too, is that you've got physical energy, but you've also got emotional energy. And I'm going to cover that in another video that's all about emotional fitness. So understanding from your own point of view what your needs are and how you're developing, because the more that you do that, and the good way of doing that is just keeping a diary, writing in your journal. Just keep it private for yourself. It's not for the kids or for anybody else to read. It's just maybe to give you some insight into how far you've come, because you'll come a long way very quickly with the Go Parenting Guide. Okay. As you begin, some of these rules will seem indirect contrast to your emotional state. Like, that what I was saying with how important it is to how important it is to speak your truth. If you're speaking from your emotional state, you may say things that you'll regret later. Sometimes the rules feel like they're not fair. Like, everyone else is getting what they want, but I'm still here suffering. Or, I've just had to, spend all my money on setting up a new house. I don't have extra money for, doing things. And it might not seem fair. Well, there's a but it's all about this emotional state, right? And being able to go, well, yes, this is what I'm feeling, rather than saying, showing the frustration and anger at your own feeling of limitations. Sometimes these rules feel like they're not fair. So we said that. However, if you can be aware of these and use them as a guide, then we guarantee the chances of success in co-parenting with the family, and how you show up within it. Okay, so if you can just find that little bit where you go, I'm going to connect with my own vulnerability. I'm going to speak from that when I'm dealing with my family. It doesn't matter how they show up, but what we're saying is that we know, well, from my experience as well, is that when we come from a place of vulnerability, when we're communicating what's happening for us, it is easier for the other people involved, if your kids and your ex-partners or partners, to understand where you're coming from. So it's all about getting vulnerable with your emotions, feeling in, and it may be, start with the simple things like, today I'm feeling sad. Today I'm feeling low. I'm feeling like, that if I have a long meeting right now, I'm going to probably feel like I'm going to walk away feeling even lower than what I would like to feel today. Like, given understanding, the more that you tap into that, the quicker you'll, the faster you'll be able to develop that emotional fitness to be able to get through to, the people and communicate the way that you want to. Okay, so the rules. These are the guidelines of co-parenting. Okay, and I'll speak about each of them in the process as well. Your health and well-being are paramount to the success of co-parenting strategy outcomes. So you feeling like you're empowered, you feeling your health, like you're not being what we want to see as the final outcome, is that you're in a solid place, that you're in your strength, that you're feeling stronger and stronger every day. And it may not feel as strong every day, but you can see the level going up. That you're actually, you're feeling healthier and stronger every day by holding the rules and speaking from your truth and being in, your integrity. The most vulnerable and valuable members of the family are the focus of co-parenting. And sometimes that may be you, okay? You may be the most vulnerable part of the family at one point, because you might be thinking, dark thoughts. You might be going through very, very hard decisions to make, losing things that you held really close to your heart. But it is part of the process. So in other situations, I remember my grandparents might have been, they love the family so much, and to see us go through a separation in front of them was very difficult, and they needed more support. They needed us to still go and have family holidays at their at their beach house and all that sort of stuff, because they needed it. They needed us to see that we were okay. Like that maybe back in the grandparents' era, it was probably kind of final, or probably wasn't, even heard of, that it's possible that you could have a separation and have an amicable separation and it work out to a point where people can still support one another, and go through the process of uncoupling. Have a reset button. Okay, so there's a part of it that says, like, this is all getting too much and I need to call safety. I need a reset button. So I call it a reset button. It's basically hitting that button and saying, I've had enough for today. I'm happy to, reschedule something, or, you're talking to your teen and they're not, and there's a bit of blame and justification going on, and you've tried all your best to come into vulnerability and disarm the attacking and all that sort of stuff. And then you just go, okay, I'm calling a reset. We need to call a reset and start from scratch. And that may be that there's a bit of time. Like, you might have to sacrifice some time where, like, the the part the part that's the part where you say that's enough, to the part where, and I need some space, to the time where we say, let's reconvene now. I've had, after the reset button, there may be some time in between, just so that things can settle down again. But there's always a reset button. So it's never final. This is the part of the relationship that always keeps evolving. And it's up to you as an individual to hold your, what you, find as your most, the best way forward for you. And knowing that you've got a reset button there is really helpful when it comes to, there's a meeting that you got to talk about finances, or you got to talk about, what's happening with a child, and you might have differing styles of parenting. There's a part of it that not giving up, but hitting a reset button, really helps. You must be able to say and act in a loving manner, to everyone who is in co-parenting with you. Okay, so this is important because it's all about, because women want to be loved and men want respect, even post-relationship. Loving a person is not about, giving them everything. Loving a person is being empathetic, is being able to listen, to understand. That's what love is, okay? And the youngest child to the oldest grandparent or great grandparent, they all have differing needs, and they'll have, if you can communicate, if you can find a way to be more in a loving, communicative way, you will find so much will open up, to the point where, that sometimes even ex-partners, they've got these special talents that you've found, really, really important to you during the relationship. And some of those might be in business, or it might be in, astrology, or it could be anything, but they've got these skills that you can always tap back into and say, hey, I'm feeling, this is what's going on, and what are your thoughts on that? And they come back. So there's parts of the relationship, it may never come back to, an intimate relationship, but there's always an evolution to reconstruct the relationship the way that you want to. And you never know, most of the time it turns out so much better, because we become still the support network that feel validated in the relationship, but they also feel like the partner feels like, now I can be a bit more selective with who I'm going, because I feel supported in my way forward anyway, right? So that's a classic example of loving everyone, or communicate with love, knowing that there is possibilities out there that are beyond your imaginations while you're going through the initial stages of the co-parenting. Any additional partners or potential close contacts must realize that they're already part of their of the current family, the existing family. Okay, so the way I looked at it was that I made a place in my mind for my partner's partner. I could see her, and I was like, okay, there's going to be a space there for a man or a woman, or whoever that she chooses, to come in and I can hold that space with them, like to say, this is I know there's going to be somebody there, and knowing that and preparing for that, that's very important for me. But for me, bringing another partner in, my conversations on the first date, whoops, my first date would be, I already have a family and you would be coming into my family. And if you have a family, your family would be coming to my family, And I would see myself as the other way as well. Like if they already had a family and I was going to them, that I'd be joining their family as well. So it's not about making a new family. It's not about creating something new. It's about bringing people into the already existing relationship that's evolving, right? And it may be that they may not get along. It may be that it might trigger a lot of disharmony. But what about if you could create a situation where you had a relationship with your ex-partner, but also your new partner, and the family becomes bigger, and the love and the relationship gets bigger, and the whole support network gets bigger and bigger, and we become a bigger family rather than a smaller one. I mean, that's just, to me, it's amazing, right? Like looking at it from a different perspective, we've got this ability to do that. Set small outcomes that measure your success. Take it slowly and remember you can always hit the reset button. So if it is a fully charged relationship, or there's, some sort of, underlining situation, and I know we go through lots of stuff when we go through separations. We go through a lot of loss and a lot of trauma, and it brings up a lot of trauma. It triggers a lot of trauma that we've already been through, maybe as a kid, or, unresolved issues, and setting small outcomes will let you find a way. Setting small outcomes will let you find a way to, like I look at it as like, put the ball right in front of the goalpost, right? So you can't miss. Put it right on the goal line and just kick it in. There's no missing, and that may look like, the easiest form of kicking a successful goal is to send a positive message. Say, hey, I'm thinking about, this situation. I'd love your input. I would love to have a talk to you about what you feel and what your thoughts are around this, right? And it may be met with, but you've communicated in the way you wanted to communicate, right? But if you keep communicating in the way and keep kicking those little goals for yourself, you'll get stronger and stronger at being able to hold that boundary and say, this is the way I want to communicate. This is because they will change. They will change. They may have their own healing to go through, but you'll be able to feel strength in yourself. Guide number 7 is called Family Time, where you can discuss family matters without judgment. Remember, the little things that need to be discussed will become the big things later on. So the way that I took this into account was that I set up maybe a family dinner. I'd have a family, my partner and my son come over on a Sunday afternoon. It might be a changeover. And I would cook a roast dinner or something like that. I like to cook, so it didn't really, for me, it's something that I like to do. And it was something that sort of carried over from the end of our relationship as well. So it was kind of time for us just to, talk together as a family, have a conversations, be an example with the children, right? Like, no, there was just a matter of just like a nice dinner and maybe even watch a Netflix show after, something for the kids. And that was really helpful for the adjustment, or the what do they call it when there's an adjustment that goes on between the parents and the children when they're going through a relationship breakup. And this may be not something that you can do straight away, but it may be something that you can work towards. And you don't really need to have it at home, in your house or at their house. You can have it in somewhere, that's more independent, more, neutral. Maybe go for dinner somewhere and just make it like some place where, that, you're going to enjoy, and it's quiet enough that you can have a conversation. Maybe, phones down. Have a bit of a conversation, at least a portion of it where you can have a bit of a conversation. I've kind of missed not having a family dinner. However, I got to the point where I found I was doing all the cooking and all the cleaning and all the, everything, and it felt a little bit unbalanced. So I sort of stopped doing it because I wasn't getting the most out of it. But it was only because I was doing everything that it took me. I could have spoken about it and probably kept going, and worked out another way to work it on. And that's probably something that I'm looking forward to in the future, where we find a one day each month or maybe once a week where we can get together as a family and just have a discussion. As they get older, I think it's more important as well that that there's communication, or that you're still part of this bond that the child has with both of you. And and it may or may not include other partners, but it's, there's a trust that comes along with that as well. But yeah, I believe it's a powerful tool for you guys to have a successful co-parent. Okay, so number 8 is children are people too, and they deserve a voice. Make time for them to give input, to just share their thoughts, and no judgment. Okay, so that's where we listen to understand. We don't listen to respond. And children's voices, it's sometimes when we're low, emotionally low, and we're physically feeling like we've been under stress and going through all this trauma, it's easy to not have the patience to talk to the kids, or let the kids have a talk or understand kids, because sometimes we have to regress a little bit just to go to their level to understand what they're speaking about, right? But it's very important that the children are heard. They will have valuable insight. I call them like the canary in the mine shaft, for lack of a better example. They show us the temperature. They show the oxygen in the room. Like, they're the first to sense something that's not right. So by having a word, having having a say, they get to be able to express themselves. I've seen that happen many a times. If when even if it's just to say, like, I don't know why we have to do this. Like, why can't you just move back in with mum? As that would be bouncing around inside of him if he didn't get to say it. So it's more important that he said it. And you can say, to respond to that, you would say, like, I wish I could too, but that's not the way it's going to happen. At the moment, what we have is our family dinners, and that's as close as we're going to get at this point until we can, and that's the starting point for us. And then bring it into that and say, if you want to have, that's why it's so important that I feel that I have these family dinners, is because, I get to hear what you have to say. So that's it. That's the co-parenting guide. I hope you enjoyed going through the co-parenting guide. I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel like you've got a tool that you can use to maybe come back to when you feel the timing is right. Sometimes it's not, it's not to put all the rules into place at once, or the guide into place at once. It may be just putting one of the guides in place and then just kicking that goal. So, and then just slowly building on it. But if you ever get, advanced, like I've gone into much more advanced into the guide now, that if I ever have a challenge, or I can always go back to the original. I can always go back to the original guide, and then kick off from there. So if this just helps one person, then I've done my bit. So that's why I'm making this video, so that the members of the evolution of fatherhood has the resources. We're a source, we're a force of resources, a library of experiences that we all share and understand each other's journeys. So if there's anything that you want to add to this guide, or if there's anything that any feedback on some of the experiences you've had using the guide, let me know. I'd look forward to hearing about that as well. But until next time, I will see you. Okay, bye.